This week on Mid-Mo J, we're checking and maintaining the food plots. This week we're going to talk a little bit about planting the corn screen plot, maintaining the North Clover plot, then we're going to start a summer series of deer aging. Back in February, in video number 2, we discussed why we were going to plant the corn screen plot. The current travel corridor chokes the deer off on the neighbor's place whenever the pressure becomes very high on them. For more detail, I'd recommend going back and watching that video because I explain it much better than I could here. But the main gist of it is we want to give them a second travel corridor that they're comfortable with so there's more deer on our property during gun season. The first step was disking the ground we had plowed back in February. And then we marked out 6 rows 200 foot long. Using a hoe, we started creating the furrows for the corn seeds. This is the part where the labor starts to become fairly intensive, especially over 6 200 foot rows. Once the furrows are made, we can start planting and covering the corn seeds as you can see here. A quick tip, if you use a light PVC or steel pipe and place the seeds in the pipe as you go, you can put the seeds exactly where you want to with no real strain on your back. Once the seeds are covered, all there is left to do now is wait for rain and germination. Due to working on the other food plots and rain in general, it had been several weeks since I'd been up to check the North Clover plot. And this is what I found. It was very grown up with brush and very much needed to be mowed. Clover was very much green and lush and looked good, but it had gotten so big that it was starting to become stalky and tough, and the deer just won't eat it as much when it gets to this stage. I got the new growth clover over here. I don't really want to mow it because it's still fairly small. I've also got this wheat mixed in with it. I want all that to go to head such that it creates feed for the turkeys, and you can see the deer and different animals have been eating on that, so I want to leave that. And I got some more back here in the back, so basically I want to mow a circle right like this into this old growth and all this down through the path. You can see you're starting to get some weeds in it. We're supposed to get some rain tonight, so it'll help it grow back quick. There's several different ways you can mow this. You can use a mower on a tractor, you can use a brush hog, or you can just use a standard riding lawnmower like I'm doing here. If you use a riding lawnmower, I highly recommend you cut it as high as you can. But they do work really well in tight plots such as this one. I also put some fertilizer on afterwards as it does stress the clover quite a bit. So all this should grow back up fairly quickly. The ground is very wet. You can see there's a lot of moisture in the ground as it is, so I don't see any real issue in this growing back quickly. In the last video I showed the new mineral plot that I placed on the other end of the clover plot. While mowing the clover plot, I decided it would be a good time to check this mineral plot, and what I found was a barren piece of dirt. Does are nursing their fawns and bucks are growing their horns, and both will be needing minerals very badly this time of year. I highly recommend using mineral plots all year round, but this time of year is very critical to the overall health of your herd. As stated previously, this summer I want to go over how to age some different bucks. And we're going to start from the bottom and go up. We're going to start with 1 and 2 year olds because they're fairly easy to figure out. And I couldn't think of 2 better examples than my buddy here, Stripe, and his running mate, Crabclaw. I got pictures of Stripe almost immediately during the July survey and continued all fall. One of the first pictures I got of this deer, he had this white stripe on his left shoulder, and I wasn't sure whether he was piebald or whether this right here was a scar. Getting back to the task at hand, if you look at this buck, his back is flat, there's no bow, his belly's flat with no pot belly at all, so he's at least a young buck. His neck doesn't really come down to his brisket, which is typical of older bucks. So now I've basically narrowed it down that he's 3 or less, So now we have to look at his overall body size. The easiest way to compare younger bucks by body size is their comparison to a doe. If they look like an old doe, they're 2. If they look like a younger doe, they're 1. Comparing Stripe to the old nanny does in the neighborhood, he's very similar in size, so I would call him 2 years old. Crabclaw had similar characteristics to Stripe, but as you can see, body-wise, he was much smaller. Crabclaw was a 1-year-old. A quick body size comparison, the yellow square is Stripe's body, and here it's overlaid over Crabclaw. You can see a small gap above Crabclaw. One other thing to keep in mind, what makes these two good to compare, is they were both 8 points. You can't go by the number of points, and you can't go by the size of rack. You have to go by their body features. That's all for this week. We have done a little bit of fishing, but haven't caught too much. But just because I haven't caught any fish doesn't mean people aren't catching fish. Quick shout out to my cousin Dustin, who you saw in a snagging video. Him and his family caught a pretty good mess of catfish over Memorial Day weekend, so congratulations, buddy. So Memorial Day weekend is over, which means the summer is just beginning, fishing's just starting, food pot season's just starting. We got a lot more to bring you. As always, thanks for watching.